These two events seem completely unrelated. On the one hand, a massive wave of demonstrations that's tearing through Iran, and thousands of miles away, the unbelievable news coming out of Venezuela. Today we're going to tell you, we're going to show you the facts that show you that these two events are correlated. The evil that's behind them is identical, and today we're breaking all of that down.
The big question is Venezuela the back door that funds all of Iran proxies in the Middle East? Let's begin. Welcome to TBN Israel, the podcast. I'm Yair Pinto. With me is Mati Shoshani and Tomer Zmora. What's up?
Hello.
How are you guys doing? And we have guests from North Carolina here in the studio with us. We'll meet them later on in the show. Today we are talking all about Venezuela and what's happening in the streets of Iran.
Yeah.
Mati, give us a little brief of what's happening in Iran. I think that's everybody wants to know what's really going on. Mm-hmm. We have some conflicting numbers, and I'm sure that the regime is trying to, change the actual numbers of people that got hurt in these protests.
So we'll start from the end. Mm-hmm. Our punchline today is claiming that there's a correlation between Venezuela and Iran. This if you're following our news and watching Boots on the Ground on a daily basis, you would already know this, but we're going to break that down in depth today. Mm-hmm. Here's what's happening in Iran. Once again, a massive wave of demonstrations that's tearing through the country. But this time it's different. It's happening after the Midnight Hammer operation back in June, where the government is already weakened in its perception of the people. It's happening not just as a grassroots movement of the students and the young people, but also the business owners, what they call the bazaris in Iran.
The bazaar is what? Is like the super mall or something like that?
If I would equate it to the American economy, it's the owners of the Fortune 500 companies.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the people. It's the people that keep. Unlike what people imagine, it's not the guy that sells spices.
I
in the
imagine
market.
somebody selling tomatoes in the markets.
It's the guy that sells flour. 30% of the flour in the country. It's the guy that exports X% of whatever commodity it is. So it's the powerhouses behind the economy.
They did the last revolution. They started the last revolution.
Yes. So back when, again, the Islamic Revolution takes root, these are the people that are behind that revolution. And this is all coming at the tail end of a decade-long decline in the Iranian economy, where their government, and we can break this down later, has done every possible mistake you can make when it comes to economic management.
Exactly.
They've made it at least once and sometimes more than twice.
And still make it today.
Yes.
Every single day. So the Iranian currency is called the real. And this currency, you can buy it if you want. You can buy 1,300,000 reals for $1 United States dollar.
Yeah.
This is how bad the currency is. And what it means for the streets, for the shop owners, is that they don't want to use it at all because they know that once they get the money, it's already worth half. So it's either they move to dollars, or they move to gold, or they move to just keeping fish and trading it for other goods between themselves because it's not worth anything.
So that's called a barter economy, and that's a telltale sign of economic collapse of a country. Mm-hmm. So Iran's in this really, really treacherous place. They're weakened on a public perception sense, both internally and externally. Both their people think that and know that because they saw the Israeli and American jets flying overhead. They also are perceived as weaker in the eyes of others in the region. And to top that off, the economy is declining. They have a shortage of water. They have a shortage of electricity. There's a shortage of commodities in the country.
Shortage of fresh air to breathe.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of stuff. Yeah. And the snapback mechanism sanctions because of the nuclear deal are back. And also added to that, the Europeans are putting sanctions in place against Iran so they cannot export their oils legally. They try to do it illegally and other ways, but this is a very, very bad situation. So the people of Iran are going to the streets.
They're demonstrating.
They are protesting, and so far we have reports of violent incidents that the regime is trying to put down these demonstrations. So the Ayatollah regime is blaming, of course, Israel and the United States and the West for artificially orchestrating these protests.
That's always been a narrative with them, which is interesting. They never, every time there's a wave of demonstrations in Iran, they'll never admit that it's for objective reasons. They'll always say this is foreign intervention on our ground.
But that's the thing. It's not the first time we hear about a wave of demonstrations, and the last ones was almost longer than this one.
Longer and more violent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So Iran
this one? Why this one is so different?
I think that the biggest thing that's different is the 12-day war. So Iran was weakened. Many of their leaders were taken out of the battlefield or this world completely.
Yeah.
And then their defensive system was proven not to defend against aerial stuff. Not against plane, not against
We need
rockets,
to talk about that because
not
the
against
second
anything.
time that the Russian systems fell down. We need to do a show about it.
Yeah, Tomer, you forgot to tell our viewers what
Tomer.
to do today. It's already like what, 5 minutes into the show.
That's a problem. That's a problem today. So, Yair, can you do that, please?
Okay. So, guys, if you like this content, if you want to help us reach more people around the world, first of all, when you're in Jerusalem, come and say hi, have a coffee or tea with us. We love to have you here and meet you in person. And second of all, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. This is how we reach more people around the world with what's happening in Israel. So let's continue, Mati, because...
Let's round up with the thoughts.
Yeah.
Though. We're talking today about the fact that what's going on the ground in Iran is related to what the U.S. is saying about that and related to what happened in Venezuela, in Caracas, just a few days ago.
That's a crazy operation.
It's all the same story.
No, exactly. Because it takes so much intelligence, so much coordination between different branches of the Navy, Army, all these branches that the U.S. have, helicopters, planes, cyber attacks to make sure that the defensive systems will not work, and they did not work.
Yeah.
And then also to extract him and his wife from their bed or something when in their house without...
From their fortified outposts.
Yeah, without
expecting
causing,
the attack, yeah.
Exactly. Without causing immense amount of civilian casualties is an amazing, successful operation that proves the power of the United States of America.
Yeah.
But I think that on top of that, it shows all the dictators around the world that if you're doing something that's against the U.S. or against the Western ideology and threaten the security of huge powers, you're not safe. No matter where you are, you can be extracted.
Exactly.
And
So
I think this is a first, right? Is this the first time this is happening?
It's the first in recent years.
Okay.
It's the first in recent years. So I want to just finish the thought on Iran. What happened in Caracas, Venezuela, is tied to the fact that the Iranian government is not using a lot of violence against its people. Because right at the same time as the U.S. says we're about to, essentially abduct and take over an enemy country in our neighborhood, they issued a warning saying to the leaders of Iran, we are watching what's happening on the ground. And if you take violent actions against your people, we will intervene without specifying what it actually means.
Exactly. So at the moment, the Iranian regime is considering its next steps.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, they can respond forcefully against these demonstrations and then risk the fact that, first of all, the demonstrators themselves will retaliate internally against the regime with the backing of the United States of America, according to the threat that Donald Trump just posed against the Iranian people, the Iranian regime. And then at the same time, Israel is also voicing support for the protesters, for the demonstrators in Iran, to stand up, to topple the regime, to have a better future, saying the Iranian people are not our enemies. And I can emphasize that statement myself. The Iranian people are not our enemies.
No.
We have many Iranians watching us, and we are praying for you, and we call for our viewers to pray for the Iranian people to have a better leadership, a better future. And we had peace in the past. It can happen again.
We had tight ties with the Iranian people. We've also met multiple Iranian people who have said that they love Israel, and we hear about them or from them in the comments all the time. And also the state of Israel says this openly. Back in June when Midnight Hammer was taking place.
Love that name.
My favorite 80s rock album. Back then, the Israeli government and the American government said to the Iranian people, we are not your enemies. We're enemies of the Islamic Republic government. We're not enemies of the Iranian people. And by the way, many people in Iran publicly state that they're not against Israel, they're against the regime. Yeah. Right now, the chants in the streets of many cities, it's not just Tehran, it's many cities throughout Iran, they're calling out, down with the dictator.
Yes.
Death to the dictator. And they're talking about the Ayatollah regime in their own country.
So they're not as afraid of the regime as they were few months ago.
Yeah, and the question that has to be asked, is it really different and is it going to end differently? Because Iran has seen in 2022, 2019, massive waves of demonstrations with sometimes millions of people in the streets. And yet the government was able to stop them every time. And the question is this compounding effect of both the June offensive, the war where they were publicly humiliated in their defense capabilities, and the weakening of Hezbollah and the weakening of the Houthis, and the list goes on and on and on.
Weakening of Hamas, yeah.
Yeah, and the financial troubles. Will that be enough to really bring change to their people? I'll just say this, and we can sort of leave this topic behind, is that this time the government is upfront saying, we want to discuss with the demonstrators. They're not, even though there are reports of violence, they're not shooting people in the street in great numbers. That might be related to the American threat of beware of hurting your own people. They're having a lighter hand on the demonstrators in the country. And it also seems like the demonstration itself is not just from one specific demographic, it's from multiple groups in society. And that really shows you how much the sanctions and their foolish mistakes, et cetera, have all hurt the Iranian people and the Iranian economy.
Yeah, listen, but what we learned, Tomer, and I think you can agree with me, is that when you put a dictator or like a dictatorial regime in the corner like this, usually their only way out is to start attacking everybody outside of the country.
Yeah.
And for them, the number one target would be Israel. So at the moment, despite the fact that the regime is at its weakest point in many, many years, Israel is preparing for a massive aerial strike against us. Because what can they do? Maybe they want to try to, persuade the whole population from looking at the problems internally into looking at an enemy trying to attack them.
Yes, that's why I think U.S. in
but
that
doesn't
moment
think that
in
this
time.
will happen. You don't think that this will happen. I
think that's why in that moment in time, the U.S. got involved and attacked Venezuela, because Venezuela is kind of a proxy of Iran next in the back door of America.
They're partners in crime.
Yes,
so let's pivot.
Why? How can many people ask us like, what's the connection between Hezbollah,
I put it in red
Venezuela,
in the script.
Iran?
Yeah, so let's pivot quickly. So just to be very, very clear, one, Iran, there's a massive wave of demonstrations on the streets. They've been weakened on multiple facets and multiple levels, and this is tied into what happened in Venezuela just now, and Venezuela is tied into what's happening in Iran. Why? Venezuela is a narco-terrorism country. They are an entity that has been exporting both terrorism, and we'll break that down, and narcotics into North America and Europe, by the way, not just North America. And they've been doing so with a stated agenda of weakening Western life. And here, in a very, very bizarre turn of events, a socialist or claiming to be socialist entity with an anti-Western, anti-religion agenda who's fighting against the, let's call it the mindset of North America, of the American people, is somehow tied into, bless you, Aaron, is somehow tied into the people of Iran who are a radicalized and radicalizing religious entity, and they're working together. Why? Because they're both anti-Westerner.
So Venezuela has something that not most of the country have, and they have it the most in the world. And
well, they have oil reserves. By the way, also Iran has an
gold,
amazing amount of
gold and oil. That's the two things Venezuela have, and they used to have some agreement with the U.S., but let's not go to history.
I think they have like what, 20% of all the oil reserves in the world.
Yeah,
I don't remember the number, but it's
about
something
like that.
huge, something huge. And with that, Iran and Venezuela like jumping over the world and the global sanctions against Iran and them together, and that's how they actually give a pipe of money into Hamas.
Let's lay out the parallels between Iran and Venezuela. Countries run by dictators who are not democratically voted in. Same point in both countries. No real elections for many, many years.
Yeah.
Second one, huge natural reserves that they've managed somehow not to make money from and only use for violence and for corrupting other countries.
That's true.
Third element, sanctions on both countries. Dramatic sanctions, it's not just the U.S. that imposes sanctions, by the way. It's international coalitions that impose the sanctions, and both countries are working very hard to circumvent the sanctions. The Iranians far more effectively than the Venezuelans, by the way. They're a much more organized government in that sense, from what it seems. And then the export of terrorism in different ways. Both of them are trying to work sometimes together to manufacture drones. Both of them are trading in drugs. The Iranians are doing it through Hezbollah and other proxies. The Venezuelans are doing it, selling Colombian drugs into North America and Europe. And the list goes on and on. There's a lot of parallels over there. And they looked at each other and they said, look, we're somehow the bad guys in this story. They really are the bad guys, by the way.
Not somehow. Yeah.
Well, they say that I'm speaking on their behalf. We're the bad guys somehow. Let's cooperate together and let's work together. And both of them, and this is really important, are strongly anti-America on a religious level, both from completely different perspectives, but a stated purpose. And this goes back over a decade for Venezuela, goes several decades back to the days of Chavez and all the foreign policy that he carried out, where they're actively trying to undermine the Western way of life in the sense of pumping funds into doing exactly that. And Venezuela did it through drugs. They did it through exporting terrorism. They did it through destabilizing the region that they're in. And the U.S. has taken a new role in this and saying, look, we recognize that we're the sheriff in town. And we need to be showing people what's what and how things need to be done. And they warned Venezuela repeatedly, guys, enough with this nonsense. Stop with the threats.
Stop with the drugs.
Stop with the drugs. Stop trying to sell, oil in the black market, et cetera, et cetera. And they refused publicly. So much so that Maduro said in the past several times, he said, come and get me.
Trump published this
video.
This video. It was hilarious.
It's not just that. He was dancing to I'm John Lennon, he said once on the stage, and started to singing Imagine All the People, and then he was shouting peace, peace, no war, and he's kind of a crazy dude.
Yeah, but and again, think about on the regional effect too. It's interesting when you start drawing out all the parallels. Both countries were single-handedly able to bring down everyone else in their neighborhood because there's such a destabilizing element. Iran, it has this sphere of negative influence. It brings down every neighboring country. Mm-hmm. It fought against Iraq. Then it destabilized Iraq. It brought down Lebanon. It brought down Syria to a certain degree. It even was behind the October 7th attack on Israel. Yeah. And the list goes on and on and on, by the way. Venezuela in their region, so here's the economic side of it. They're a country that has huge natural resources. They're not able to distill their own gasoline. They have to buy it from other countries because they're such a broken economy.
Who, Venezuela?
Venezuela, yeah. They're a country, they can't even make their own drugs, the ones that they're exporting. I'm joking, but it is serious. But they also sit in what's called, I forget the name of it, it's called the something triangle, where some of the biggest deposits of the rare earth minerals and minerals that are needed for battery production, for a whole bunch of things that are in the, let's call it in the high-tech industry, they're all in their neighborhood in Central America. And because of that, and them having a negative effect on the countries around them and breaking their own economy, they're a negative effect in the same way that, maybe not as effectively, but a negative effect on the neighborhood in Latin America.
So are they trying now to basically, how can they circumvent the sanctions? So they're trying to sell barrels of oil to China, to Russia, to like countries that are outside of this coalition that are dictating the amounts?
This is time to introduce, I'll drum roll, Shadow Fleet.
Okay.
Shadow Fleet. It sounds so ominous. Yael, tell us about their Shadow Fleets.
So I think that the Shadow Fleet is very interesting. It's basically a way that you send your oil carriers to transport your oil from your country to a third-party country. Who has the phone here? And the way that it becomes a shadow fleet is by turning off the beacon, the GPS on the ship in the middle of the way, and then it disappears from the radars of everybody. And then once it turned back on somewhere else in the oceans, it has a different flag, a different company operating it, and then it's like not a Venezuelan ship or not an Iranian ship. And then you can sell the oil to a third party without breaking any kinds of laws. But the money still is being
I
funneled.
mean, you are breaking laws. It's just
but
you haven't been caught
You
doing
didn't
it.
get caught, yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So let's give an example of this, and this is where it gets really interesting from a U.S. and Western perspective, because when you learn who's buying these things off them, you understand why this is such a big issue. Because it's not Israel, it's not other Western countries,
It's North Korea, it's China,
it's India, it's countries who have like a dubious past and dubious present when it comes to their relationship to the West and to Western values, and are also adversarial both to Israel and to the West. So let's say I have oil and I'm not allowed to sell it. I put it on a ship, the ship leaves my port, I turn off the transponder, change the flag on the ship, change the name on the ship and the registry in the books. Then suddenly that same ship who's had its transponder off for days or weeks, it appears somewhere entirely different in a gulf somewhere off India, in a gulf somewhere in the South China Sea. Suddenly this new ship appears and the transponder's there and no one knows what's on the ship. They've used this to smuggle weapons, smuggle drugs, and also crude oil. And then they come to, let's say it's India or Pakistan or name a country, and they say, look, I've got some illegal oil for you. I'm going to sell it at 80 cents on the dollar.
cheaper than what you can
Cheaper
get
than what you
on
can
the
buy it
market.
in the open market. Buy it from me. But I can't take, so how do you transfer money? Let's say I'm buying a shipload of oil and it's worth $25 million or $30 million. Okay, so I don't know what it's actually worth. I'm just throwing a number.
Yeah.
And I say, well, transfer the money. I say, well, I can't transfer any money to you.
I don't use the SWIFT system.
Exactly, because sanctions kick you out of the SWIFT
Exactly.
system. So now you have you want to receive the money. So you say, give me something else. What do we give you? Maybe,
I'll take some drugs
or maybe missile systems,
or weapons.
or missiles, something creative. Or in the case of Venezuela, how about some gold? Get Venezuela and Iran. How about I'm going to give you physical gold in exchange for this. You go do what you're going to do with that. It's much easier to smuggle. Or maybe suitcases full of cash, American dollars, maybe American counterfeit dollars.
Yeah.
So it's this whole elaborate scheme of trying to circumvent the sanctions on Iran, on Venezuela, that all make them sort of this perfect candidate for the pressure of the American government and the American armed forces. Mm-hmm. That's really where all of this comes together.
Yeah, exactly. So is this a good thing for Israel or not, that the president of Venezuela was basically taken from his country in the middle of the night? What do you think about that? I have my opinion, but I'm curious.
I think in the grand scheme of things, yes. In the sense that if we ask ourselves the question, does this prove that the United States together with Israel is a very substantial stabilizing element in the global, let's call it geopolitical game, then that's good for us. Because it shows us, and again, the U.S. is our number 1, 2, and 3 ally in this region. If they show their power and their willingness, not just ability, willingness to exact that power and exact the punishment on the enemies of the country, that's good for us as an extension of that. I'd say in that sense. And by the way, Venezuela, in an unsurprising turn of events, was not a pro-Israeli entity. It doesn't hurt to have an anti-Semitic government, an anti-Israel government be weakened.
You know that the vice president that is now running the country of Venezuela just stated that this kidnapping had a Zionist scent to it. Of course, to add some anti-Semitism spice to the whole operation here.
Yeah.
So I think I agree. I think that this proves that what Israel started with the taking down of leaders of terror organization is working. So, because if you just respond to the small cells attacking you all over the world, also ISIS, also Hamas, Hezbollah, then you're not attacking the head of the organization. I think that in the past year at least, or even year and a half, Israel proved that by taking the leadership out, the Houthi leadership, the Hezbollah leadership, Hamas leadership, even outside of the country, outside of Gaza Strip, with the leader Ismail Haniyeh taken out and other leaders of the terrorist organization and the attempt on the leaders of Hamas in Qatar. And now the United States is basically saying, yes, this method is effective and we are endorsing it. So that can give Israel more tailwind to do the same thing in the future.
Yeah.
And that can pressure the leadership of Hamas to actually follow through with the disarmament and moving to phase B in the Gaza Strip, for Hezbollah to disarm. It gives some motivation for the leaders to actually act if they want to live.
I think you're saying something really, really interesting, and we'll get to this right after we talk about who our sponsor is, which is that the U.S. made a strategic move where up till now much of the moves against leadership have been on a tactical level. It's eliminating the field commanders, the chief of staff, the actual leader, but we never went after the person who's behind the scenes pulling all the strings on this operation. If you look at that, it's the Ayatollah regime in Iran when it comes to the Middle East. And if you look at North America, the massive opioid problem that exists there, the massive effect of that narco-terrorism on the entire region, they went at the head, and they also did it in a very different way. It's not just military action, it's legal action.
Exactly.
And I'm going to throw a bomb, and then we'll talk about our sponsor, which is that what the U.S. did, counter to what people are saying, is actually legal according to international law, not illegal.
Nice. I want to hear more about that.
Let's talk
I want to hear more about that.
Let's talk about
our I like it. Okay.
Let's talk about today's partner, which is Vinya. Very relevant for me today.
Yes, definitely. Matti, you slept like 2 hours in the past week every night, maybe?
It's been a long week so far. Yeah.
Exactly. So guys, if you never were introduced to Vinya, they have been with us for a long time. It's an Israeli innovation. It's taking the cells of grapes from Israel and putting all the best stuff into a little pill. And then you take it every day. It's a food supplement that is boosting your blood circulation, giving you more energy, giving you more alertness, and especially in Matti's case, for being tired, making you a little bit more awake throughout the day.
And sharp.
Yeah. And I've been taking it 2 years now, I would say, since the war started, about that time. And it really helps, especially for me, when you're tired and you don't have enough sleep, but also on normal days. It really helps. So if you want to try it for yourself, that's a great New Year's resolution, by the way, to start this new year healthy and active and energized. So
where do they get it? Yeah.
They get it at vinyatbnisrael.com. Okay, again, that's vinyatbnisrael.com, or you can call 800-638-1944. This way you also help us create more content here in Israel and try something healthy from the Jewish state yourself. Okay, Matti, I'm back to you. I'm curious.
One last thing, if people missed it, it's vinyatbnisrael.com, or they call 800-638-1944. I'll just say one last thing. This is me saying it, not them. There's a difference. There's coffee and certain things, they make you just feel energized, but they don't make you feel focused. And this is different. It helps with the blood flow, not just blocking your body from knowing that it's tired, which is for me what caffeine does. You just feel buzzy, but you're not focused. Here it's different. You actually feel sharp and energized at the same time.
Cool.
Back to Venezuela. So here's a claim that people are making. People are saying what the United States did is against international law. By the way, many people who know nothing about international law love saying that things are against
Israel all the time.
Against international law. And let me say this. The idea that's behind this is people claiming that the United States violated the sovereignty of Venezuela. And to violate the sovereignty of a country, you need to be going against an elected government or a real government and leadership of a country. What is Venezuela? What has Venezuela been for years at this point? It's been a country without real elections that has been hijacked by a narco-terrorist organization. And this is important to note. In Iran, and this is the distinction between Iran and Venezuela, in Iran, the government controls everything, including the criminal activity that the government carries out. I'll explain. Iran, when they want to carry out terrorist activity or illegal activity, they use the IRGC, Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. They're the ones who funnel the drugs, who funnel the cash, who funnel the weaponry, et cetera, et cetera. They're the ones who they don't necessarily pull the trigger, they enable the terrorist attacks.
They go and they train a tribe somewhere in Lebanon or in Yemen, tell them, this is a rocket, this is how you fire it.
Yeah.
By the way, Jews are bad, attack them. They are the cause of all evil in the world. So it's also ideologically and also practically.
Yeah, and then behind the scenes, they also control what happens on the ground in Iran. And that's a big distinction. In Venezuela, part of what this government has done, it's several governments now, they've destabilized also Venezuela. So it's not a dictatorship in the sense that everything is monitored and controlled by the country. It's the word is a kleptocracy, a government that steals from its own people.
Kleptocracy.
Yeah, like a kleptomaniac. So like a kleptocracy is a government that steals from its own people. The government enabled, let's call it, criminal elements to almost take over the country. And they created the ecosystem that allows these, let's call it narco-terrorist organizations, to breed in the region, and then that's destabilizing everyone else. But the level of intent behind it, or the level of control, is lesser than what the Iranians have.
Okay, so
And
it's more than what Hezbollah has in Lebanon. So you have a terrorist group that is stronger than the government and also embedded into the government, into the policies and everything. But in Venezuela, they're also heading the country.
Yeah, and by the way, this is an issue in Central and Latin America, where some of the what people like to call, the what do you call it, the cartels, et cetera, they're not just drug organizations in the way people imagine them. They're quasi-government in certain cases, and they're so powerful that the link into terrorism or global geopolitical influence is almost immediate. So if I was, just to finish the thought, if I was China or if I was Russia and I wanted to somehow negatively affect North America and specifically the United States of America, a good partner for that would be one of these cartel organizations in Mexico, in Venezuela, in Colombia, in whoever it is. It's drugs, it's money. And we say this in Israel. The same route that's used to carry out criminal activity can easily be converted into carrying out terrorist activity. It's a very, very quick shift for these organizations. They have no problem violating the law and social norms. Why would they have a problem going from one type of paying the bills to another type of paying the bills? Yeah. So that's really the backstory here. Then the United States says to this person, they didn't just say, this is an enemy, we're going to eliminate him. They say, this man has been committing criminal offenses against the country of America on multiple levels. And it has to do with drug smuggling. It has to do with violence. It has to do with exporting terrorism, with treaties. It's a very,
breaking also financial treaties of investors
it's a very long,
from the U.S.
list.
in Venezuela.
Yeah, and stealing American property on the ground in Venezuela. Because again, kleptocracy, they're a government that steals. There's an American entity that helps them, let's say, refine their oil or find their oil or whatever it is, oil or natural resources. And they say, well, here's a company that's worth, let's say, $12 billion. Let's take over this company. It's no longer U.S. owned. Now it's government owned. Government actually means friends of the leadership owned. Yeah. But then 2 years later, 3 years later, that company is now worth what? Zero. Yeah. Because they're a corrupt government. They just break the companies. They don't build the companies. So there's a whole element there. The U.S. came and arrested him, not as just a political statement of look how strong we are, with the purpose of indicting him with a long list of crimes that he committed and trying him in the U.S. And they're doing that. He's not just sitting at Guantanamo Bay or some offshore facility. He's being tried for crimes, and they're doing it at a very rapid rate, that have been built as a case against him, as a warrant against him. And by the way, who were the government officials who actually are the ones who are escorting him? It's not Delta Force that carry out the action.
It's DEA.
DEA.
Yeah. Exactly.
Exactly. So it's the people who are tasked with stopping the criminal activity. So it's important to note that this isn't just an attack on another country. It's legal action by an American government against someone else. One last thought on international law. People love throwing the word, oh, it violates international law. Is there, I'm asking you, is there such a thing as international law?
Well, it's basically an agreement. It's basically an agreement between the strong countries that are in control.
We're just seeing the international laws getting changed in front of our eyes. Everything getting changed.
So, Yair said something really true. It's the strong countries playing games and bartering power. That's what international law is. People imagine that there's like this one book that you open and it says this is
good, this is bad.
The book of international law. International law is a very long series of treaties with a very complex political relationship between different countries. It has to do with UN, different assemblies in the UN, different governing bodies, different international treaties, and on and on. It goes to maritime law, trade law, commerce law. There's a whole lot that goes into it.
It's agreement so that you can make business or operate as a global world.
Yeah, and what it is there's a whole lot of things that are written down. Many of them or much of them are not enforced. And then when a country with power wants to weaken another country, they say, I'm going to use this part of this against you. Where do you see that? In the fact that almost all especially in the UN, discussions, debates, resolutions are all aimed at one country, Israel. Exactly. And if you know anything about what's happening in the world, you realize that international law is far more political and politicized than people imagine it is. And that's something that's important to note. Trump isn't a criminal in what he did here. They're using the law as it's supposed to be used. It's just most people are afraid to do it.
Exactly. No. So I'm very curious and hearing Tomer also, what will be the next step? What's going to happen? So that's what happens with Venezuela, and how will that affect Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, and Israel in the near few weeks?
I don't know about Venezuela. That's not our interest of point. We can look at it and see how it's affecting us here in the Middle East. I don't know what's going to go with Greenland, that now we see the same force that it was in Venezuela going over Greenland right now, or what it will make. But there is 3 scenarios, I think, that can happen to Iran. One is that the regime will collapse. Second, that the regime will lose it and attack Israel and try to set the fire up. And 3, it's that Israel and the U.S. will make any movement to prevent and help the Iranian people and make the regime to fall. That's the 3 options that I think right now on the table. Or the 4th option, there will be a huge rain and Iran will be drowned in water or something.
What?
I don't know. Something godly will happen.
Yeah, biblical option.
Flood can come to the table. But with all of that, I think that's the place that we're standing in. Every minute a new report coming out of Iran about weird explosions and more people getting arrested, and they already how it's called when they hang people. They
do public executions in Iran.
2,000 people only this year.
Wow,
2025.
In Iran, that's always a metric of how scared the government is. The minute they start expressing fear, they start eliminating people publicly. And if you've seen the images, we're not going to put them on screen here because this video will get banned. If you have a stomach for it, go look it up. It's very, very public. And it's done to put fear in the hearts of people in Iran. I would compare it to very, very dark regimes in the world. This isn't the way a government operates against its people. It's deeply evil. I want to maybe introduce a different thought, Tomer and Yair.
Yeah.
Where the thought here is that the Venezuela and Iran situation is not isolated. There's a war going on right now in the shadows of global politics, which is a war over the question of, are you going to be a force that is, let's call it pro-West and Judeo-Christian values and counter-West and Judeo-Christian values? And it's a very, very big war that's happening on multiple fronts. It's a cyber war, it's a trade war, it's a treaty war. And behind the scenes you have, let's call it the U.S. and its allies, both willing allies and forced allies. Maybe some of the European countries don't really like cooperating with the Trump White House, but they don't want to align themselves with Russia or with China. And then you have behind the scenes Venezuela, Iran, but they're partnering with actively the likes of China, the likes of Russia, the likes of dictatorial regimes elsewhere in the world that want to destabilize and bring destruction and bring instability in the world. And the way they go about that, it has been for many, many years, is using proxies and destabilizing actions. They don't go to full-on war. They don't declare war and like start the engines on the fleet.
Yeah.
It's always in the shadows. It's always undermining. It's always a trade war. It's always a weakening war. And to answer Tomo's question, there's another element here, which is when you look, I've just been like sort of on a deep dive in the recent days about what's going on in Iran. If you look at it, it's an evil government and evil governments, plural, that on every possible level are doing the wrong thing for their people and for the world. And I'll give an example that isn't Iran and isn't Venezuela. Russia. It's a country that, and you think about this, since the fall of the former Soviet Union, it's a country that's been experiencing demographic decline, financial decline, a kleptocracy where the government repeatedly steals businesses and business from the people. They have an escape of the bright minds from the country, and the list goes on. And then that's internal. And then they silence the media. They eliminate journalists that try to expose. They assassinate or torture to death opposition forces within the country. And then they have a foreign policy that's also violent. They invade the Ukraine. They threaten Belarus. They threaten, other countries. They cut off the gas pipe to Germany and claim it was an accident in the middle of the winter to make people lose heating in their homes, to put pressure on them. And again, and on and on and on the list
Sell
goes.
weapons to dictatorial regimes, terrorist states.
Yeah, and that's really what's happening behind the scenes here. It's a tectonic plate level clash between those who want to build and stabilize and those who don't. And when we zoom back into the Middle East, we're in the middle of the biggest shift in geopolitics. Throw a year, 20 years, 30 years, I don't know how many, let's say 30 years easily, where the U.S. is saying, guys, everything that's happening here, we want to stabilize. We want to stabilize Gaza, then Lebanon, then Syria, then Jordan, then Egypt, then trade, then weaken the Houthis.
Then Yemen, then Somaliland, then all this stuff.
It's just this huge regional move. And when it ends, it'll be a lot better for everyone else. It's a positive domino effect.
Yeah.
But what it also does is it weakens the forces that oppose to that. The Iranians look at that in concern. The Chinese look at that in concern. The other friends of the Muslim Brotherhood around the world, they look at that in concern. Even the Turkish government, to a certain degree, is not very happy with it. And the list goes on, and it's this huge ripple effect. So at that, people are looking and saying, if we're against the U.S., if we're against Western thought, how can we stop it? And that brings us to the question of what does Iran do next? Because it's all part of the big picture.
Yeah, that is the big question. So as Tomer said, there are a few options. One is to crack down internally against the protesters and hope that the United States and Israel will not respond. That's one. Second is to carry out attacks and double down on their ballistic missile. And now we hear reports about chemical warheads that Iran is trying to develop and create to carry out and also to deter the world, because chemical weapons are scary. They're like second level scary beneath atomic bombs. And that will be potentially another path that they will take. And then the third path is to actually listen to the people and to make a change, step down, start an election, can be a real one or a fake one or a semi-transitional government. But I wouldn't bet on the third option, because usually dictatorial regimes, go down fighting.
Yeah, I think if we look at the previous revolution that took place in Iran, there's a couple things you realize, which is in retrospect, it's almost impossible to know in real time how things are going to go, because the demonstration wave that starts at 100,000 or 200,000 people, it could be within Masa Amini. A few years ago, the Iranian regime, they kill a young woman, Masa Amini, and her image becomes sort of like the war cry of the demonstrators in Iran, and then millions go into the streets to sort of protest the violence.
But then it died. Yeah.
It died on multiple fronts.
Yeah.
They had to use an enormous amount of violence.
They brought Hezbollah into the country. They brought a proxy to shut down the people.
Yeah, and there's a price that you pay for using that level of violence against your people. The IRGC, and we've talked about this extensively over past years, the IRGC, when it uses force inside Iran, it's not local Iranians that go to work from their house to the IRGC office and then go back at the end of the day. It's foreign forces that are not identified.
They don't care about the people.
They don't care or are not identified with the Iranian people that are using violence against the Iranian people. You do that to your people enough times, your people realize, and they have been realizing this, that they'll go to any length to stop the government, because that's what the government's doing to them. They say, look, if this is who the government claims on the one hand, we're doing this for your benefit. We're doing this to fight the West. We're doing this for the glory of the Iranian people and the Islamic Republic of Iran. And as long as there's water and food and commerce,
people say,
maybe you're right. Maybe, maybe the truth is somewhere in the gray area.
If you don't have water, food, and your friends are being kidnapped from their houses mysteriously, then you think, maybe something's going on here.
Yeah, maybe this isn't really true for our benefit.
Exactly.
When they say, and this is really where they say the tipping point of these demonstrations is the day that policeman comes home and not only the demonstrator's fridge is empty, but also his fridge is empty. That's the day he joins the demonstrators.
Exactly.
And it's impossible to look from the outside and say this is the tipping point. We're not going to know. And when it happens, it might be it might be like that.
24 hours, something like that.
So I heard this analysis that was talking about that back in the late 70s, when the build-up towards the Islamic Revolution was sort of happening, it wasn't just one mullah, it wasn't one cleric that was sort of the runner-up to be the one to carry out the revolution. The people didn't know where it was going. They just knew that
Something is happening.
there was a wave of protest, and then almost overnight the government is switched. And there's a tipping point that you can't see in real time. Retrospect, it's easy. Hindsight is always easy. You don't see it coming. This might be that thing. And if we
That's exciting.
Yeah,
That's
it's also
exciting.
scary.
Yeah.
I mean, because the positive side is that the Iranian people get a new government. The scary side is when you have an enemy as vicious and as strong as the Iranian Islamic Republic on its back leg, on its in a defensive stance. Now they're a wounded animal, and they're going to do anything almost to stay in power. They'll hurt as many of their own people as they need to, and they'll make up whatever conflict or clash or excuse to fight against Israel or to fight against the U.S. or whatever it is. That can also happen at the same time.
Exactly. But I think this, we don't know. So what we can do now is pray for the Iranian people, stand with them, and really hope for a better government that will bring a better future. And I think that all the moves that we're seeing in the Middle East and in the world altogether can bring prosperity to the entire world, not just to Israel, because it's tackling evil regimes that fund terrorism, fund drugs. And I think that what October 7 and what these 2 years taught us all, that there is pure evil and that there is pure good in this world. And this is the time for all of us to make a stand, to speak up, to share the truth, and to pray for the situation. Because they are using lies, they're using deceits, they're trying everything in order to convince us what's right and what's wrong. And we need to really ask the question, is this actually what's happening? Is this really the truth? Let's maybe get another source, a second opinion, dig a little bit deeper than this YouTube or reel or a TikTok video of 1 minute that we form our entire concept of what's happening. And I think now is the time to ask our guests here to come up to ask a question, maybe share. They came from the United States to Israel. And
just to be on the podcast.
Yes, all the way here. So here you go. Please speak to the microphone and let us know where you're coming from and what are you doing here. How is Israel now? And then you can ask Mati a very hard question.
Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate the hospitality, but more than anything, thank you for the content that you put out. We feel that this is the most accurate of what is happening in the U.S. and around the world, especially here in Israel. I'm Karen Bolofiansky-Beard, and this is Jody Cohen. We're from Charlotte, North Carolina. We've been here with the group Taglit for 2 weeks volunteering, everything from picking fruits, and you can see the battle wounds of that to provide.
Well, you're picking cactusim? How do you say it in English?
Cacti.
Cacti?
grapefruit trees, to help the farmers who do not have workers and provide food.
Thank you for doing that.
To the Israeli population, to also keep the prices down and accessibility, to visiting retirement homes, soldiers, and
you did a barbecue for soldiers also,
we did.
Right?
We did a barbecue for soldiers, and
we'll talk after the show.
Okay.
I have some soldiers for you that need a barbecue.
Phenomenal. It'd be our honor. So the question that we have is, Jody and I have had the pleasure of going to major cities around the world, and I would have to say that so much of Israel is phenomenal, and we see a lot of growth, a lot of cranes, not just in one area, but all over. So my question is, what is the building? Who's coming? What's the big picture for Israel?
How much time do we have? Great question, because you're asking a question that touches on end-time theology, on demographics, on politics, and on the psychology of the people. I'll say this shortly. Israel is a demographic miracle on multiple fronts. We have people in this country that, contrary to what happens in most Western countries, the birth rate in this country has been increasing year on year, not only in the Orthodox community, that's the important part to note. In secular society, Israeli families, many families have over 3 kids per family. In the secular population, At the same time, it's one of the most educated populations on earth. Two very contradicting facts. Then you have the miracle of immigration to this country, where time and time again throughout our lifetime and lifetimes before that, they say, "Oh, look, the Palestinians are going to the Palestinians are going to have more kids than us. We're going to be a minority in the country." And then wave after wave of immigration happens. In the 50s, the wave of immigration, over 1 million Jews from Arab countries that were expelled by the Arab countries. A fact, the Farhud, a fact that most people around the world don't know. Far more Jews were expelled than Palestinians fled in the 1948-49 war. They were expelled because of an Arab League decision. Then you have several waves of immigration after that, including 1.4 million Russians that came in the early 90s after the fall of the former Soviet Union, and again in the late 90s, and again the Ukrainians, and again the French fleeing from anti-Semitism in the mid-2000s, and the list goes on and on and on and on. But the short answer is very high natural growth in the country, high economic growth that goes together with it, which is, it's an oxymoron. Usually those two things contradict. Very high natural growth hurts the economic growth of a country over time. A young population with a high high workforce in it, and a sophisticated economy, and all of that bring together the fact that we're building a lot of homes, and yet somehow they're still very expensive.
Yeah, and there's not enough.
Yeah,
there's always not enough homes. Exactly.
And not enough room on the roads. Exactly. So we're an anomaly when it comes to statistics. By the way, rivaled only by one population in the Western world. You want to guess who it is? Evangelical Christians in North America. Wow. When it comes to natural growth.
Really?
And the reason is there's a whole psychological and sociological background to that, which is populations that have hope have kids, and populations that lose hope and direction stop having kids. And say what you want to say about Northern European countries that have less than 2 kids per family, many times less than 1 kid per family. And then you can see the pockets of faith and belief in Western civilization that really show you who believes there's a reason to be here tomorrow and why we're going to be here tomorrow. That's sort of like all of that together.
Good answer, Mati.
Thank you.
I learned a few things. I like it.
I've been rehearsing this in front of the mirror. These are paid actors. I have them come and ask questions that I've already prepared for.
Make us look smart.
These are my cousins from the U.S.
That's right. We're all cousins. We're very happy
we might
to
actually
be here.
possibly be.
Absolutely. Thank you
Very
so
cool.
much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much.
Thank you.
Hey,
guys,
maybe take us out, Yair, maybe.
Sure. Hey, guys, thank you for joining us for TBN Israel, the podcast. Again, if you are in the Jerusalem area, make sure to email us, leave a comment. Let us know that you're here. We'd love to have you in the studio. We'd love to have coffee, tea, or water together. And if you're not here, if you want to help us, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and most importantly, keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem.
Amen to that.
We'll see you again next time for another TBN Israel, the podcast.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.